Hello, I think we're live. Welcome to the Laser Sports Academy podcast, everybody. Great to have you here. We have our friends from the United States of America here today, our old friends Skywalker and Arkangel, and we have a new friend today, Mr. Pheonix, Grant Staton from Fort Wayne. It's about his fifth year in the scene, and it's great to welcome you onto the podcast for the first time, mate. Welcome along.
Thank you.
So why don't we, while people kind of, firstly, if you're in the chat, just send us a quick note. How did the audio sound? Is everything kind of coming through okay? That would be great to hear from you. And while we wait for people to kind of tune in, Grant, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into laser tag?
My name is Grant. I go by Pheonix. I started playing just all-you-can-plays about 6 years ago, and then eventually seeing that there was a community at our local site and started coming out more and started playing in a league, and eventually played the first tournament in Philly, which was a whole different league. That was about 5 years ago. We started playing with Helios CE and then upgraded to Helios 2, so that's what we've been practicing on for the last 4 years. Yeah.
You guys have been on Helios 2 for 4 years.
Yep. We got it right before COVID hit.
Wow.
Like right before COVID.
You guys have got to be
shut down for 3 months.
You guys have got to probably be some of the most experienced H2 players going around.
I would say so.
Yeah. And starting on Helios CE, that must have been a journey coming from that. Yeah. That's great to have you on, man. And yeah, I'm just going to send a quick message to the chat, make sure we're all cooking. Everything's good.
You can probably hear me typing too.
All right. So, yeah, today's podcast, we're going to be talking all things Prenats at Fort Wayne. And it's an exciting topic because we're going there for the US Nats in July. And, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about this later. But some of the teams that have signed up for the Nats in July is awesome. It's, probably going to be, is it fair to say, guys, probably the most competitive tournament we've had in the US for some years?
Oh, absolutely.
That I've played
easily. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really hype event. Everyone's really, really excited for it.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, there is some Aussie players going, including myself and Holmes and Runt, which is going to be pretty exciting, as well as some European.
Kind of buried the lead there, didn't you, on that last one?
Sorry? I know.
Saving Runt for the end. Little
Oh, yeah, and
build a little tension.
Yeah, we hear he's gotten even better since I've seen you guys back in 2020. Was it 2019?
2019
when I played in Sweden.
Yeah, 2019 in Sweden. Oh yeah, he was a bubba back then. He was just coming through. So he really, I had a chat to him recently. He really started hitting his straps in 2022 in Bendigo. That's where he really started to come through. And then once he got H2 and hosted his own Nats, he just kind of went to another level. And
absolutely,
yeah, he's kind of up there amongst definitely in the conversation for the best player in Australasia right now. And many people think it's not even an argument. He's there, but yeah, he's killing it. So it's going to be great to see him come up.
Well, we're glad he's coming.
Europe and the US. Yeah, so let's get into Prenats to kick it off. Thanks, Zach, by the way. Thumbs up. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Prenats. And before we start, there's a lot of us that haven't been to Fort Wayne yet. So, is it possible, Arkangel, to pull the map up while we have a quick chat about the tournament?
It is. Let me do some creative editing.
I will say
here.
as well, there's not the best quality because it's been about 9 years since we did it, but there is actually a virtual tour that anybody that's traveling to our location from out of country or even out of state that's never been here can go to our website for Ultrazone Fort Wayne and do like a little walkthrough virtual tour like they do on Google Maps, and you can see the whole arena.
Yeah, cool. So there it is. It looks so different to anything that I've played in a long time. Yeah, talk us through it, Luke. Like, how does it play? Is there a strong base? Give us a bit of an insight into the meta of the arena.
So usually everyone would agree with me in this group here, Grant especially, that green base is the strongest base, and
sure.
it you can kind of see from the way it's laid out, it's a lot different than the other two, which are kind of similar. It's just that blue has a little bit longer of an entrance to get inside than red does. But green base, you can really bunker down, and you can hold that base pretty much until the end. And I don't know, the meta here in America hasn't changed much from like the players of us that go to like Europe, and I've only been to Australia once. So you guys play you play the walls a lot better than anywhere that I've played anyone. So the way you guys will play here will be a lot different from what our players are used to, where they get out in the open areas and they dogfight and they try and rely on timing and dodging. And when you guys run away from them, get behind a wall, I'll get back here, like it's going to be funny to see. So if you look at the ramps, though, there's like little arrows that are kind of grayed out. The only ones that aren't playable would be the one, I don't know if you can put your mouse over it, Jason.
This one here.
The one that goes between green and blue. We actually block that off.
Sorry.
Yeah, we block that off so that you can't shoot across there. So there's actually a tarp that goes up there. So you can kind of see how green is kind of secluded from the rest of the arena when that's blocked off. There's only like 3 ways to get there, but it's all this walls. They're like 8-foot walls that you can't shoot through. So there's little holes there, the orange mesh or window that you can shoot through, but they're very small. And then I just wanted to go over the ramps really quick on the outside of green behind it. You can put the actual ramp to go upstairs.
Oh, this one.
You can put 1 foot on any of these ramps and then next show them blue ramp. This whole area around the backside of blue base, that's a ramp leading to our upstairs, and that you can't go up there. It's just 1 foot on those ramps. So I don't want it to like be deceiving to people looking at the map as to where you can play,
Do you guys use those?
These pink lines are also little half or angled walls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and spectators are more than welcome to go upstairs so long as they're not talking.
Yeah.
So if you're talking upstairs or you're a nuisance at all to like the players downstairs in any way, shape, or form, you're just asked to leave or your team could be penalized. We really haven't added that to the book, but I mean, it would be up to like tournament coordinator's discretion, I would assume.
Okay. Getting a little bit of feedback that the quality's not great. Oh my gosh, that's not good.
I heard there was a little bit of lag, but the audio was good, is what I heard.
Okay, is this the video? Righty-ho. Okay, well, we'll keep powering on, and hopefully the internet starts working better in the next period of time. Let's talk a little bit about first thing I wanted to say about the arena. The red and blue bases, the doors seem a lot closer to each other than the green base. So is it fair to say it's...
Yeah, do you have any photos outside those bases you can show, Jason, or no?
I can. Let me stop sharing and resharing real quick.
They are a lot closer for sure. The red and the blue base. You do have to like come out from the doorways quite a ways and then go around a wall to get to the other side. So when you're playing on one doorway, you can't just like shoot the other doorway by reaching. You wouldn't know where you're shooting. You'd have to actually move out. So that's the one advantage. Whereas at green base, if you're all the way down on the other side of the doorway, you can shoot somebody at that doorway. Even though if they're further apart, you can shoot them. Like it's really easy to see the other players down there.
Yeah.
So
if you exit one door at green, can you enter the other door pretty easily within the deactivation time? So you can
if you get all the way inside green base and say you're coming out like the long side of green base, it would be very hard to get all the way to the other side because it is pretty far of a distance, I would say, from like normal bases, just what they look like they're not so close together that you'd be able to get back there. You'd have to be hustling.
Yeah.
Not running, but hustling.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Thank you, TRL, for that.
See if this is
that's good news.
coming through. Is that coming up? Okay, perfect. These are, and you guys can find these pictures on the Ultrazone Fort Wayne Facebook page as well in the files. Between Luke and Paige, they've done an excellent job taking pictures
There'll
in
be
the
some
arena.
more that Paige is sharing soon
Mhm.
that have a little bit wider angle lens that we got too.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
show a little bit better detail as to where the base entrances are from
Yeah.
each other.
So this is kind of that outside portion of the blue base, and
Yeah,
this
if
is
you slow down, you can kind of see the light shining through on the other side of that wall to the left of each photo. Like
Yeah.
say, you know,
Here.
where someone's standing right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can get a picture from that other side. I don't think
There was
there's
just so
good.
many photos.
There's not
There
a lot of
are
good
lot.
angles to stand. Here you go. So this is actually the photographer
ramp.
standing on the ramp on blue here. To where did that go?
Which would be the opposite doorway of all those other photos you just saw.
Right. So
you can
that
kind of see how they have to come out and around that wall to the left, you know, to get to the
Right.
other side.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay.
that's you can put a foot on the ramp here to kind of duck behind the wall so you can't be immediately black packed by the person who's inside. But that's a bit quicker at the red base, like you were saying. So there's a lot of good space outside red, but once you get to, I think we start off with all the outside pictures.
I actually have a video I can share with you sometime too. That is just me walking through the arena with the camera, just kind of like talking about the arena a little bit, and
Yeah,
I can just do a little walkthrough.
Yeah, send a link through before the tournament, and we'll post it on the Laser Sports Academy Facebook group so people can have a look.
So yeah,
so
you can kind of see here from this is one
good.
of the doors here where that red base and the target card is on the inside. So let me pull this back over so people can see. So this is from right there. Oh wait, hold on. I have to actually put this here. So this is from outside of this section, the mirror, and directly in. So it's a very, very short go to it. You can kind of see it's maybe one or two steps.
Is there any more photos from Red Ramp that you can see both doorways, like that one kind of down to the right?
Yeah, these are good ones.
Yeah, like
so you can kind of see
the doorways are to each other. Dang, that's actually a really good photo of how people play in the arena.
Yep.
The wall.
And this is from the edge of the ramp, kind of like Luke was talking about, how you can spectate from the ramp or above, where the photographer here is, you could easily have 1 foot on the ramp and 1 foot off the ramp and be firing at that angle. Yeah. So this long hallway door, back hallway door.
That's one thing that I don't think Bootza would be used to is, I don't remember, you guys don't allow shooting over walls, or you just don't allow the protruding over walls?
Yeah, so if it's like a half height, you're not allowed to put your phaser. You got to pretend like there's a pane of glass on the half height, so you can't put your phaser right the way across it. But once you get to a certain height up the ramp, well, sometimes we try to design the arenas. Yeah, we try to design the arenas so that there is a barrier. In some arenas, we have a sensor with a light, so if you cross the half height, a light will turn on, and that's how the refs know. And then, of course, when you've got a ramp which goes up to a certain level, once we get to a certain height, it's considered a different. There's a ledge and a barrier, and I forget which one's which, but one of them you can't cross, and one of them you can cross with one shoulder, essentially. And that's like if you're up high and you're firing over the edge of a ramp, and somebody's like way down below you, that's fine to have one shoulder over, essentially. So
that makes sense.
So in summary, it looks like it's a pretty brawly arena. So we're going to have our work cut out for us, because that's not a style of play that I personally am very familiar with or good at. But we're up for the challenge. That's the great thing about traveling.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much it changes when games matter. A lot of prelims, people try and feel out the other team, see how easy it is to crack, see how easy it is to defend. But in America, a lot of the meta is finals. You'll see games all throughout the prelims and ascensions being 50-60 60,000 point games and a lot of 40,000 point, games. And then you get to finals and you got 15, 20,000 points in finals per team, sometimes 10,000 points, because people are just so bunkered back and no team makes a push and forces players to go out. That's what happens a lot.
Yeah, cool. That's good. That's pretty common, I guess, in a lot of sports, actually, and even at Zeltak as well, where things really tighten up towards the pointy end as defense sort of starts to dominate. So, let's get into the tournament now. Tell us a little bit about it, how many teams you had, what events you ran.
We did start with 7 teams, and then night 2, some people couldn't make it out, or I don't really know what happened, but we ended up kind of taking one team that only had 4 people and splitting them amongst some of the other teams. So the boys over here that you see in the top right, that team kind of disbanded night 2 and they just went amongst everybody else. But in the beginning,
I ran out of space to put who went where. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, as far as Valhalla goes, that's their actual Nats team. That's Phoenix's team. Coast to Coast. I don't know. Is Banshee like an alt for you guys for Nats?
He was able to sub in because my brother had pneumonia.
Okay.
And another one of our teammates, his mom went to the hospital. Morning we were supposed to be driving, so we were kind of a very quick we need some subs, and Cassie had played with us at Battle for the Fort, so she was an easy person to ask. Same with Odin as well.
Real quick, you do have Trash Pandas incorrect at the moment. You have Bob and Ballad, Scooby, Odin, and Banshee on that.
I might have copied that incorrectly.
So Phoenix, are you the captain of your team?
I am.
Don't copy paste.
How do you?
Phoenix is captain.
Have you been captaining for a while, or is it something you've kind of picked up recently?
This is the second year that I'll be captaining. I captained last year when we went to Philly, and it was definitely a different experience captaining, having to make calls and try to get people to go where you want them to go or do what you need to do. And it's definitely very different.
Would you consider yourself what's more challenging for you, the work that a captain does inside the arena or the work the captain does outside the arena?
I would say inside the arena for sure.
Yeah.
You're missing frequency, Jason.
Did that one not update either? Okay.
You have 2 BSOs on there.
Yep.
I was looking at who you were missing.
Good call.
I guess the work you do inside the arena as a captain, you get limited opportunities to practice, really, don't you? It's like when you're playing, all the stuff you do outside the arena, you can pick those skills up in real life, in jobs and careers and all that kind of stuff with leadership. But the stuff in the arena is like you just got to do it wrong a couple of times in the arena before you start really learning.
Yeah, but I definitely learned a lot last Nats, so hoping to make it better this year.
Yeah, cool. And how's your team shaping up for Nats?
I think pretty well. I've played with all of them before for a team, and me, Key, and Hellfire have played the last 3 Nats together, so this will be our 4th, I believe, if not 3rd. So
cool.
It'll be your 4th, I believe, because you went Bailey's, Philly. You've done Fort Wayne at least once or twice with them.
Yeah,
and then this will be Fort Wayne again, so it'll be your 4th or 5th with them.
Yeah.
And you played with Hellfire too, and myself when we went to Sweden with Odin and Gimpy and Valid. As far as Coast to Coast roster goes, Odin will not be playing with them for nationals. Like he was just subbing in again. But Scooby's first time playing in Fort Wayne was just Prenats, and he did amazing. He did really well compared. Like he even said like the first night it was all about feeling out like the arena, and we all complain about the packs because we know how they should play. Because right now we're waiting on some phaser cables. That's like our biggest thing is phaser cables are short in supply right now, and we got to fine tune all the IR on all the packs and everything yet. But as far as like his complaints for it being the first time there, he said he liked our packs and that everything worked great for him. He only had like minor issues here and there where he couldn't hit somebody in the back or something, but it was very seldom that it happened. But Coast to Coast did really well. Obviously, they ended up winning. If we get into that, I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, let's go there now. So tell us who were the finalists and who ended up winning the tournament.
Hold on. This does deserve that there. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, they did have some help from some local players. Like Odin will be playing with my team, and my team wasn't there, so I ended up playing with BSO.
Mhm.
But as far as LOR goes, usually myself, Hellfire, and Striker, if somebody else from out of town isn't here to knock the three of us out, that's who usually is always in the top 3 or top 5 is those players that you see there for LOR during like our leagues and like local tournaments and stuff. The lower bracket, I couldn't really tell you. Snips is a newer player, and he ended up making his way to the top 3. We do 2 tiers for LOR. So like if we say had 30 people, the top 15 would move on to Ascensions for tier 1, and the bottom 15 would go on to tier 2 Ascensions. And we like to give people that are newer to the experience a chance at playing at people their level, of brawling in the LOR. So they all enjoyed that. That's like an opener to the event. Everybody enjoyed that. As far as solos goes, I don't think I got third. I think Renegade got third. But I mean, hey, you want to give it to me? I ended up having a one of those what we call lemon packs. So I was handed a lemon.
You should ask to speak to the manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I should. That's me. Oh my God.
Those of you at home, Luke is
But
the
that goes
manager.
to show you that I don't. I'll be honest though, like some people think that like I just know what the good packs are, and I do know like a few that work. I don't know that they're great, but I don't know the bad ones unless people tell me. I really don't. So when I was handed that pack, I looked at it and I was like, okay, put it on. I'm in the game, and I'm like, this is terrible, and it was really bad. It was a bad experience. I actually had a negative score ratio for like the first time in forever. That was fun, but
You
Odin did really well.
you ended up
Valak
eking it
did
out
well.
by about 250 points.
Yeah, it was
What it
really
was.
close,
Yeah.
but I believe, I did get beat out in that, and I won the first game by like a landslide with the pack that I was given. So it just goes to show that the packs do need a little bit of work because the inconsistencies there. As far as triples go, I don't know if it was close or not between anybody. I'm pretty sure that it was. I personally enjoy no more than 6 teams in the game at once for triples with 9 minutes, giving everybody 3 minutes at each base to get their bases per team. But it played really well. We ended up doing 5 teams, I think, for triples. Because we don't have a 6th color at the moment. We have to get a license for that, and we'll have all that stuff once we have to get a hold of Zone US, and then Zone Australia has to give us a temporary license. So hopefully they can help us out like they usually do past. They're always really nice about that. So
yeah. So tell us, was there any big stories from the comp? Like what was the
Eliminator? What's that?
Just tell us. Was there any big stories? Was there any big stories from the comp? Like, was there any anything that happened, or any events or things that kind of stood out to you guys?
I don't really know anything that stood out personally to me, other than like I will say like we really cracked down on cheating this Prenats, and I know Jason wants to take it a step further and even incorporate like a referee test like you guys do in Australia, something minor but necessary for like, since it is a player run sport, we need players to know what they're doing, and not just in game but also when they're reffing, not to follow the rules and to enforce them. You have to kind of give them a little bit of more feedback as to what they should be looking for exactly, and we want to like do the same stuff that you guys have done and take some photos or videos and incorporate that into like a little ref exam that shows like, is this a tick? What is the tick for? And so on and so forth. But
when you say cheating,
the refing
do you mean like mainly covering, is it, or is it a broader range than just covering?
I would say the cheating would be like just minor things like people arming by keeping their arms in front of their chest, or people entering the base off, or they just little things like that, or they enter the base too soon as they're coming on and they don't get called for it, stuff like that we want to be sure that people are really, keeping integrity for the game and not just cheating to cheat, or cheating to win, I guess. So we cracked down on that, and I'd say it was a lot better this tournament here for us personally. What I noticed is it's always the same players. So we always know what to expect from a lot of the same players.
Yeah.
And I think what just needs to happen is moving forward is a lot of teams just need to hold their players accountable. If they're caught on it, there just needs to be harsher punishments for it. That's all. If you're continually offense, breaking the rules, I feel like the more you do it, or the more you get called on in one event, the harsher the punishment should be each time you're called on something. That's all. That's what my takeaway from the event was. I just noticed it was always the same people doing the same things.
It's so good that you're like putting such a focus on it, and you're at that point now where the scenes kind of the life support's come off since COVID, and now we can focus on the detail of getting some of this stuff right, which is going to grow it to the next level. And it's just a process. You've got to like do exactly what you're doing with the improvement of the tools for the refs, and then it becomes a cultural thing, right? Like people will stop doing it when it doesn't provide them an advantage anymore, because they know they're going to get picked up, at least half the time for bringing the arm across. So
let me switch this across real quick, just so you can kind of see. So kind of with the storylines and with a lot of that as well, this shows it too. We upped the number of teams that were in the arena at one time who were reffing from 1 team to 2. And there was a lot more coverage in the arena, from having one ref in, one ref out, and then also having a roaming game master as well. And kind of like you were saying, now that we're kind of on the other side of COVID, team numbers are going back up. We've got a little bit more space with that. Night 1 was fairly close in rank points, and kind of like Luke was saying earlier, everybody was feeling it out, trying to get an idea of, not only what works for the arena, but what works for us, who it works against, who it doesn't work against, stuff like that. Night 2 for was kind of the same, but you can clearly see, based on so we ran a Cascades for the second night, just based on time and side events that we wanted to run. We didn't have
dropped
time.
1 team as well.
Right. So they we ended up kind of tightening up, and that's where some of the like team dropping and stuff like that happened. I think there was a little bit of frustration here and there from people, and just said, okay, let's call it a day before tensions get too high.
Is that from the additional focus on penalties for like arms and stuff?
I think it was just from the changes happening mid-tournament. So like we said that we wanted to like test things at Prenats for nationals, right? And then when we allow changes to happen in the middle of the process, it discourages people. So like I think a lot of local players and players attending weren't aware of changes that were happening, and we tried our best to like get the information out there that like the focus of Prenats, it will be changes like that we want to implement for the better of the community and the better of the play experience. And a lot of people had a lot of not nice things to say about that, I would say. But it ultimately was for the better of the comp experience, right? We're not trying to like just change things just on the fly for no reason. We have a reason for things, and sometimes people don't ask what the reason is. They just assume, and then they get upset. I think that's what was happening is night 2, people might have already been frustrated with themselves or their team or how they were performing. And then when teams got changed, it kind of changed everything that happened from night 1, because now teams are different. So, and that won't happen in an actual sanctioned tournament. But I will say that Prenats, I don't know if you guys give awards for Prenats. We didn't do any type of awards. It's more of just like, this is the placements. So you guys do have like bragging rights for this, but we don't do any awards for our Prenats here.
Do you guys plan to do multiple Prenatses in the future, like next year, perhaps?
That's a great question.
I know it's probably a bit.
Do you guys do? Can I ask before we answer that? Do you do multiple Prenats at different locations?
Well, no, we do it at the same location. Currently we do 3 Prenats, and in my personal opinion, which other people may not share, I think it's one too many. I feel like 2
and
Prenats.
What do you gain? What is the ultimate goal, or what do you gain from running 3?
So we don't do mid competition changes.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Sorry about that. We don't do mid competition changes to the arena or the competition. So Prenats 1 is like, okay, what did we learn? And then Prenats 2, a lot of changes are made prior to the tournament. And then going into Prenats 3, there might be a few tweaks, but generally once Prenats 3 is like a dress rehearsal for Nats, essentially. There's very rarely any major changes between Prenats 3 and Nationals. So the advantage of the multiple Prenats is that you don't then need to make changes mid-competition, essentially. But my problem with having 3 Prenats is that...
And I think that's what we could learn from you guys.
Yeah, I was just going to say, my problem with 3 Prenats is that it robs other areas or regions from having tournaments because there's only so much space on the calendar, if that makes sense. So I think 2's the magic number.
Yeah, I think you guys could get away with just 2.
Yeah. The first one is just like, okay, what's broken? And then you'd make a whole bunch of changes going into Prenats 2. And then, Prenats 2 is kind of like your dress rehearsal for Nats. And if you have to make a few minor tweaks before Nats, that's okay. As long as you're not making wholesale arena changes and stuff like that between the final Prenats and the Nationals, essentially. But that system kind of works really well. You finished?
I was just saying, I think we skipped what you guys do for Prenats 1, and we just went straight to your Prenats 2 because we made a bunch of changes right in the beginning, and some worked, some didn't. We got a lot of good feedback and a lot of complaints too. So we got to just work with what we got and learn from that off the 1 Prenats, because we're not going to host another one, but we plan to host a spring leagues that we can tweak some stuff and see what works for us locally and get feedback from anybody that's attending that we can see, because we'll probably have 5 or 6 teams being here for spring leagues to see what's up between April and June, and then we have a month before nationals. So
that's good. And we find with leagues, they're a great place to learn, but because the teams aren't typically at the level of a nationals team, different stuff gets broken once you get to that higher level. But you can still learn a lot from leagues. You can iron out a lot of little bugs, particularly with flow and what you guys we're going to get into it soon about what changes you guys made with baselines and exiting and entering and exiting bases and stuff like that, which were all really good solid changes. That kind of stuff's really you can figure all that stuff out during leagues generally. But there's typically the top level players will find new stuff that your league players won't.
Oh yeah, we know.
And to give a little context to the people who haven't been to tournaments in the US, typically our scene has kind of ran in, you have your 4 to 6 day nationals event somewhere during the year, and then throughout the year from there it's been little weekend tournaments here and there, but all over the United States. So one of the things we've tried to use coming out of COVID is kind of mirroring that structure of, okay, we know Nats this year is going to be here, so we're going to do kind of like a midway point pre-Nats that's a weekend tournament, and that's going to be a little bit of practice for that. We can test some sort of things because we're not really at the point where we could sustain 2 or 3 larger weekend tournaments like that to get enough high level people there, or not have just the same 4 or 5 teams playing every game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully a couple years from now that'll be doable. But that's kind of the reason why, with how the US scene grew, there wasn't as much of a cogent like national organization scene. It was just, okay, we're going to run a tournament. And I think that, different team sizes, different locations, I think a lot of that contributed to different teams over the course of time kind of falling out of the wayside, and more teams kind of conglomerated over the course of time. So part of the reason why we have less site teams as well in the US compared to your all scene.
I think it's a really
lot
important,
of it was just by necessity.
Yeah, I think it's a really important context that you provide there, because Zeltap didn't start with 3 Prenats; they started with 1 Prenats back in the day, and as the scene grew, the capacity to hold 2 and then 3 Prenats came about later on. So yeah, it's just part of the journey, starting off with 1, and then as things grow, you got new options that have become available to you. So no, that's really cool. And so the Cascades, you guys ran a 6-game Cascade.
So, yep. And then after that, we ran into a System D. I can make that a little bit bigger here.
Except we didn't do a 3-game series of Golden
Right.
Games, which we will be doing at Nationals. So
Cool.
yeah, Nationals will be a little bit different than pre-Nationals in that
All
regard.
the way through. You're going to do 3-game series or every game of finals?
That will be determined based on, I believe we're getting help from Andreas and Bob. Bob is like our local U.S. grid master, I would say. And then Andreas knows a lot more about System D. And I know that we did a 3-game series when we went to Sweden last time, like in 2022, December of 2022. Everything in Ascensions was a 3-game series. Now, whether time will allow for that or not, I couldn't give you an answer for that. If we have 15 teams coming to Nationals, if we do, there might be harsher cuts at the bottom 5 or something like that, and then you move on to 3-game series moving on the rest of the way. But I know for a fact that all 3 Golden series will be a 3-game series.
Yeah,
sure.
We did that. We had a tournament called Rumble, which we basically, in the year that was COVID in Australia, we didn't have a Nationals that year, so we ran something at Brisbane that was called the Rumble, and we ran 3-game series all the way through, and it was a lot. Like, it's just, particularly for teams that climb, like, they were wrecked by the end of it. Like, some of them were playing 10, 11, 12 games. So yeah, what I took out of it, my learning was that I think I would go with, so we're going to potentially run a Worlds tournament at Brisbane later in the year, like a Worlds practice tournament. We're going to just do Golden Games as 3-game series, and obviously the grand final as well.
That's what I like about that, is you have to play the same teams on each color. So it's not like it's not like what is it called? The prelims or the Cascades. Now you're actually learning how the other 2 teams you're playing against play on each color while you're in the game with them each time. So it could be different depending on what their strategy is, or they could try and mirror your strat, that you did at that base because it worked for you guys. It just really depends. But I like the 3-game series the best because it's the fairest, especially with bases being so powerful for one team, or like this base being so much more powerful for another team. It really just depends on your play style, what works best for your team.
Yeah, I agree.
I think my favorite out of the sorry.
No, you finished, mate. You finished.
I think my favorite out of the ones we've ran was, I think we did in Philly, where we did Golden Games as 3-game series, but we also did Elimination Games as 3-game series as well. And then everything in the middle was a 1-game series to kind of preserve that advantage you have from seeding coming out of round robin, cascade, stuff like that. But when it's a very serious game, let's make sure the right team ends up where, based on everybody getting an even crack at that. You still get your advantage from picking color and that sort of thing, but it's
if you do a 3-game series across the board, it becomes a little bit more of an endurance game. And then you really have to make sure you're in shape, and you have to make sure you can outlast the other 2 teams in the arena.
We can't have it in America.
I'm gonna say we need more of that in America.
Yeah, well, for me, it's also a time thing, right? Like, it's like, how much time do you want to allocate to finals? Yeah, it's just a
usually
massive
time
amount of
thing.
time. Yeah. So
but
just
we
before Sorry, you finished, mate.
I was going to say we are doing the daytime event, and we are going to be closed to the public. And that weekend is Three Rivers Fest here in Fort Wayne, which is a huge festival. There may or may not be talk of just being closed all day one of those days. I know we are Sunday, but potentially even Friday. I mean, I don't see us doing much business. So if we could run from 8 to midnight on a Friday, I mean, that would be awesome. That would allow for so much more.
Totally. More team games, more Cascade. Here we go. So yeah, just
I'm in
before
on
we
that.
just before we move on to a little bit about what you learned in
Mhm.
terms of your survey results and what was tested during the comp. Yeah, just run us through the grand final there. Looks like it was pretty close. Who was
Oh
in
yeah,
the
right
comp?
here. It's in front of
Yeah.
us. Who wants to take over that?
Pheonix, you're in
Grant,
there,
you
weren't
want to
you?
tell us about what your team experienced, since you haven't really talked much? You can give us a little bit of insight as to what happened, because you guys, if you scroll up, Jason, you can see how well Valhalla did, like the entire Cascade.
Yeah, we did really good during prelims and the first Cascade, and
they had the lowest rank points out of anyone.
This was
Yeah.
them in round robin, far and away, first place, and then this was your Cascades total, and then what it looked like after that.
So is it here? I'll ask you a question, Grant. Is it a mentality thing or is it an endurance thing for your team?
I think it's definitely a mentality thing. Once we had the first pick for what we wanted for our first base, and we thought we had our plan figured out, and our plan fell through. So, and we couldn't pull it together halfway towards the end of the game. So that lost us the first game for finals. Second game, where it's just a mental game of trying to figure out what Coast to Coast and BSO was going to do to try to counteract it, and it just didn't work out for us.
Yeah, I mean, I can chime in a little bit as far as to like what happened. I believe it wasn't during that game 2, but the same. I don't know exactly what happened in game 2 of finals, but what it looks like from your guys' score is kind of the same thing. What happened in one of the golden games that you played against both of us, the first golden game, I think it was.
This one here. Yep.
You allowed BSO and Coast to Coast to base swap, and you still defended your base and never got back. You never cracked one of us out, and then you just waited too long. And then by that point, Coast to Coast was able to get into your base, and my team was kind of off in La La Land. I don't know what they were doing. I told them that we needed to keep them out. It was like Monstro and Sweden all over again. I was trying to get them over there. I was trying to get them to get Coast to Coast out of your base, and that's how you guys kind of caught up. You almost beat us in that game. I think that's kind of what happened in game 2 of finals, is that you guys kind of let us base swap in the beginning, and you guys ended up getting almost all your bases, but you couldn't fully get them at the end, and you were just being out pack farmed because we already had our bases, so we were just able to shoot everybody. But game 3 was a close game between you and Coast.
Game 3 was a good game. Definitely felt our mental. We've seen our score for game 2, and definitely said we got to pick it up, and we tried our hardest. I mean, we got a second in that round, but.
So do you guys see the scores in between games in the final?
No, but we do let each team see their team score between games.
Yeah.
But you cannot see the other team's score.
Yeah.
And we have a tournament coordinator that's not a player, and making sure that she's very thorough about each team getting the correct score, because there have been tournaments in the past where someone was handed the incorrect score. And that can be a killer, because then you're like, okay, well, we know one of them got that score. So being extra thorough, making sure everybody gets the correct score, making sure that the captain of the team is the one to receive the score, and that it's not shared with anybody else, is how we do it. But we don't we keep the scoreboard in the lobby off as well, I believe. The stream is obviously still running, and obviously we don't allow any cell phones or any type of smartwatch with like I believe you have to have if we're going to allow smartwatches, I believe you have to have your cellular data off, because somebody could easily, try and cheat and send you a message or something. So stuff like that, we try our best to make sure nothing is being underhanded anywhere, you know.
I find it interesting that you guys had the green was considered the strongest base, and it lost 2 of the games in the grand final.
It did. Yeah, it did. Yeah. And I think you attest that to the way that the other 2 teams play. Now, if you know that green is the strongest, you know to avoid going to green base. And a lot of times you'll see red and blue team will swap bases. So that kind of forces the green team to try and play catch up. And if they don't catch on fast enough, then they're going to get starved, then they can't get their bases while the other 2 teams are fighting for points. And that's kind of in game 3 with BSO is we just couldn't get in to a base. And I'm sure that probably some of us even got denied. We got denied the base. We all call it comped in America. If somebody gets denied the base, we say you got comped. That's just, I don't know, it's what we call it. So, but that's what happens, and that's what happened to, I think, Valhalla game 1 too.
Yeah. Yep. So what I'm hearing is that we're going to have to be prepared for some base swaps when we come over.
Most likely, but that depends on if people pick up on the way that you guys can, you know, if you guys play the walls like you always do, it'll be hard for them to even get around you guys or to keep you guys off because they like to like stand next to you and then get behind a wall. And that's what a lot of people are learn to do because they learn off what the other Americans play. Whereas you guys will position yourself like you have 7 seconds to get away from this person and go position yourself somewhere, and you don't wait to the last second. In certain situations you do, yes. But I remember specifically when I was in Australia having to chase people before they got away from me because they're just going to position themselves over there, and then I'm going to get shot and I'm going to be annoyed. So
there's a lot of room for intelligent rotations as well. So like to go back to this real quick. So this hallway from red to green all the way through there, I have clocked 6, 7, 8 seconds. You watch somebody come out of this hallway and they come back in this hallway.
I'll be in red base, and next thing you know, I pop up on the green base screen.
Yep. It's one of those things where you hit back once on the Twitch bot and you're like, wait, no, that's too far. He's in there for an extra second or 2. But there's a lot of for anyone who's played Bailey's Crossroads, I actually think this arena is somewhat similar to it. It's just there's a lot more horizontal movement in terms of what the map looks like, whereas in Bailey's there's a lot more vertical. There's less straight movement, and if you have good rotations, if you're paying attention to who's doing what, there's a lot you can take advantage of in the game, and I think you guys will adapt very quickly to that.
You'll also
given
notice
the crew
that this arena has a lot of dead space. So like behind blue, for instance, during comp, you don't really see a lot of people playing there. Like it's more of just a pass-through area. Yep. And if you get shot there, it's like, oh, well, you know, like no one's playing there. And if they are playing there, they're not getting any points there. You know, it's kind of our just walk-through area where people are trying to get the bases, but you don't usually get a lot of points from there. You can, but you'd have to be playing a different game, I think.
Cool. All righty, lads. Let's move it along. Let's start talking a little bit about the some of the changes you made, some of the lessons that you learned. What have I got here on my notes here? The things you tested. I noticed you had some cool pictures and some different things that you did. So let's have a look at that.
So the main 2 that are not listed here that I think are arguably the most important were the us having a dedicated tournament coordinator and a dedicated head GM, where that was their only thing they were looking at, the only thing they were focused on. The head GM is we bought like neon safety vests, kind of similar to what you guys have, handing all of that. You go here, you go here, you go here. And a lot of that kind of.
And by GM, you mean just for people at home, game marshal? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. Head referee. Yeah.
Exactly. and then taking care of all those little things we need to work out with that, but that'll easily be done. The
That was a
main
good testing ground for
Exactly.
Prenats. It
Yes.
showed what we could improve on in both
Mhm.
areas. Like it helped a lot having a designated one for in both areas, and like you said, there's a few changes, and I think something about cards. Something was like we were going to implement cards. Did you hear from Jason about?
Potentially. So part of the background for that part is the number of terminators that we have to actually give someone a penalty. So we only had what was it, 4 at the time. So
Yeah.
we had an inside of the base for each of our bases, and then our roaming game master didn't have one. So we've been kind of brainstorming different ways. What can you do for those game masters who are on the outside of the base?
We'll have 6 for nationals.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
we may not need to do cards. We might need to. And I think there's ways, depending on like level of penalty and stuff like that, we could implement that as well. And couple of different things. One of kind of the big things before running through these for anyone who's watching, if you haven't filled out the either of the Prenats surveys that were posted, Luke posted one and Invalid posted one. We're still trying to collect as much information and data as we can. So if you haven't filled those out, please jump on there, fill those out. I know Jason, he wasn't able to make it tonight, but he's going to talk after we kind of get all that information together and make some decisions. Some of those will be his decisions, some of those will be captain's decisions going into nationals, for things we're going to be looking at. So into the actual things we changed. So one of the bigger things we tested purely in triples is there's a small cubby outside of the green base that we tested people not being allowed to play into it. I've got some pictures for that for those of you who are not familiar. So we tested that. If you feel strongly about that either way, please fill out the survey. In terms of bases, there were 3 main changes we did with bases.
Before you go on to the
Sure.
changes, you could talk a little bit about it. Like, I personally felt that it impacted the game flow very positively in triples.
Yeah.
I like.
Well, here, if you want to talk about it, let me switch to this screen then.
So
Yeah,
just
I
to
just
clarify, with
personally feel
triples, did you guys play like a normal base game in triples? It was like a regular, like you had what?
It was almost like team comp.
Yeah.
Yep, just like team comp,
Yeah.
but all the bases were solo bases, and the the deactivation time was shortened by like 10 seconds. So instead of 25-second DX, they were 15-second DX.
I think so, yeah.
And then they came back on, and each player could destroy all 3 bases once. But having that cubby off with multiple teams there really improved the gameplay, in my opinion, because being able to play in there kind of forces like 2 teams to not be able to enter, and it can kind of slow down the gameplay. I personally like to be able to rotate bases or stay at a base if I'm done, but maybe it's just my play style. I know other people. I feel like people that play in the cubby are people that aren't playing to win, if that makes sense. They're playing to stall or to be a nuisance. They're not playing to win because they're not going to get a lot of points there. They're just more slowing down the game flow, and that's all it does. So I feel very highly about closing off the cubby, and that's why I wanted to kind of voice that. I don't know what your guys' take on it was in triples, because you both were there as well.
I would beg to differ on that. It slows the game down because it's huge. If your team is in the base, then that is the place to play outside to defend the base from outside.
Can the person?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that I would never play in the cubby to defend green base outside of it, personally. But that's just me.
Yeah.
Can the person in the cubby shoot the person at short?
They can shoot the person at long and at short.
Yes.
So you can kind of see from
it's a little hard to see
from
that
this picture.
It looks like the wall is curved, but you can shoot that person.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the outside wall here, and then this is the outside wall there, and you can tuck pretty far back, but then flip fire either direction. It kind of forces. I don't know how I feel about it either way, to be honest with you. I think I am more of a fan of getting rid of it, just
Yeah, I
because.
just don't agree with giving somebody full protection from every angle, but this one, like, bracket there, I'd be completely fine with it. But since it's a cubby, you're shutting down every single uh, angle to get shot from except for the front. So it forces a player to come into that very small space to go shoot you every single time, and then you come back up 8 seconds later and have to do it again. So that's why I personally like it. But so there is an argument for it.
Continue, guys.
I think that goes
So,
both ways.
so can you hear the rain coming through my microphone at the moment?
No.
Marginally, but it's not.
I can hear my speakers. Oh, okay. Now I can hear it. I turned on my
Shut the
speakers.
windows. Sorry to interrupt, Stun. You keep going.
No, not a problem. I kind of like it because I can come up behind people like you, Luke, who are running through and don't have to stop and address that position. So you can kind of get into the rotation. I haven't decided which way I want to vote on it, one way or the other yet. I'm leaning towards not having it. I liked kind of the game flow of not having to have a whole bunch of people stop in the middle and address that person.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't really bother
I
me
feel
either
like
way,
that
to be honest. Like,
that
I'm gonna
cubby
deal
is
with
what
it no
makes
matter what. So
it's what makes green so powerful, though, because you come over that short ramp, you got somebody in the base that can shoot you, you got somebody in the back hallway that can shoot you, and you got somebody in the cubby that can shoot you. So you have three angles that can shoot you at one point in the arena, and you have to worry about all three angles, and you can't, as one person or two people, you can't focus on three angles, and that's what, if you take one angle away, then it forces players to play a little bit like the other bases.
Yeah.
If you take away cubby, I believe the green base would play like more like red, and it's hard to say like blue because blue is a little bit different. It's so just different. I'll leave it at that. Blue is not
Very
like
different.
green or red at all.
yeah.
It's very congested.
I have a feeling I know what you would say to this, Grant, so tell me if I'm wrong or not. I think changing the angles and forcing people to have to deal with it is part of the argument to keep it. Instead of just run past it and go as much. I don't know if the cubby necessarily. I don't know if I agree. And granted, like literally is your arena in multiple senses. So correct me if I'm wrong, Luke. But I don't feel like the cubby made much of a difference in finals. Like it wasn't something I felt like I actively had to think about.
Players like me, it does, because
That's fair.
The saying takes five. I mean, I say that a lot because I have to move around and shoot people from different areas. Where if those areas weren't available to them, I would have gotten in the base and had it and been on my way. Like I said,
can see that.
For certain players, it does make a difference. For other players, it doesn't. And as a team as a whole, if a team is there, it makes a minor difference. I think the rule just needs to be enforced that we didn't use is treat the cubby like it's a base. If you're deactivated, you cannot be inside the cubby.
I think that's a good middle ground.
Now you're hiding in a little cubby and no one can get to you, and then you just wait till you come on and then boop, you're there, and if you treat the cubby, that was one change that I disagree that wasn't made. If we were going to allow cubby to be used, I believe we should have implemented that rule of not being allowed to be in the cubby while you're deactivated. Because any active player, if I wrap around that wall and I don't see lights, I should be able to just get inside, not have to ask somebody to move out of my way. But it is a playable space, and that is an argument for other people. It should be treated like anywhere else. So there are arguments to be had on both sides of the spectrum. But cubby is a nuisance for anyone traveling here. In my opinion, it is a nuisance. You say you don't feel like it changed the outcome, and that may be true. but it is something of a nuisance for green base when you're trying to be the attackers. If you're defending, it works great.
So
If that was the case, why didn't green win more games of finals?
That's because teams didn't attack green.
Fair.
So we actually have some terminology for this. We call it spot evacuation.
Spot evacuation. I like
spot
that.
evacuation. Yeah, they've used it in the previous nationals back in 2008, I think it was.
Was it like a certain space or spot?
Yeah, it's like this, just little corners of space that they wanted protected, and if you get deactivated, you leave that space. So we didn't actually have base evacuation that year. We only had spot evacuation in that particular nationals.
Oh wow!
So it's just the way the arena was set up.
I think that's going to be most likely what it comes down to is something along those lines, because it is a very important spot, but that, when you walk up and don't think anybody's there, and by the time you go, active player, please move, and the person slow moves out of it, and then you get shot,
you're
like, I don't have to move anymore.
Yeah, or you're a larger player, and then, it's just, those are the things that I think you run into with Cubby, is it's more of a nuisance for a player to have to tell somebody to move out of a small space so that they can get in there and then get their shot off. And then it's like, at that point, the play is dead. You can't do it anymore,
All right. Well, I reckon we've had a really good discussion on Cubby, and I've always enjoyed Cubby houses as a kid. So I'm looking forward to playing in it. Let's move on to the next thing that you guys tested.
Sure. So I guess I'll go to the last point, because that's a shorter thing. We've kind of experimented over the last couple years about shot rate and game time and number of DX for Eliminator. And people have a lot of different opinions on that. Same thing. If you feel strongly, reach out about that. We experimented going a lot shorter on game time. I think we did 6 minutes and 6 DX, was it?
Yeah, it felt really short.
Yeah.
The shot rate was great. Everybody in the survey that I collected, for the most part, agreed that they want one shot at every 1.5 seconds or 0.75 shots per second.
Yep.
That was the overall consensus. I think 2 players wanted 1 shot per second.
Right.
But the time settings, everybody had mixed things to say about the time settings. They didn't really agree with because we also changed the lives too. It's normally 8 lives, and we had 6 lives, 6-minute game with a 1-minute pre-start, and it felt really short. And if I give my honest opinion on Eliminator, I felt like it was a waste of time just on how short it was. It just didn't feel like a true Elim game. Like there wasn't enough time to get a sweep.
Right.
If you do 6-minute games, even if you do take 2 lives off, well, now, shoot, I only have 6 lives to push these other teams, and there's 4 teams in here. So how am I going to do this? Whereas at least with an 8-minute game and 8 lives, you have a little bit more time for other players to knock other players' lives down and then potentially get the sweep. I felt like it was a little too short with 6 minutes.
Yeah. I think I probably agree. I know we did the same DAC and game time setting at Philly, but for some reason it felt different. I can't exactly put my finger on what it was about this one versus that one that felt so different. But yeah, that is kind of go back to everybody. Make sure if you have filled out the survey, please do. So we have that data, and Jason has that data going forward towards nationals.
Fort Wayne to Philly, you had more space to move around in Philly than you do in Fort Wayne. So that it made you feel a little bit more free, that you could do stuff. In Fort Wayne, you didn't have as much freedom to do that. People sneak up on you behind your back, and then you're down to 2 lives, and the game's already almost over. It's like, what am I doing here? So.
The other main changes we made were with bases, kind of trying to reduce congestion and flow in the bases. So there were 3 different pieces we have here, and I will actually go forward to the next slide so you can kind of see. So this was from I think Battle for the Fort, I want to say.
Yeah, those quads.
Yeah, I just copied this out of the last one we had. And then this was a screen grab from the last tournament. So you can kind of see a couple of different things. So like the baselines, they also got a new coat of paint, so to speak. Those are these first set of lines, but you can see an extra set of line in front of it. So I've been calling those no loitering zones, for lack of a better word. I think Invalid's been calling them dead zones, I want to say. Those are basically, if you're kind of like the idea with, I think, what we'll end up doing with Cubby, where if your pack is not on, can't be there. Just as a general idea to reduce congestion outside of the base entrances.
Yeah, a lot of people used to like to just stand there waiting to come on. And then if a player was coming around the wall trying to get in, the deactivated player would be in the way, even though they were waiting to come in and get out, you know. So if you eliminate that with those lines, that's the goal of those no standing zones.
Yeah. Most of the feedback for those that I've seen across both surveys were pretty positive.
Yeah. It was either indifferent or positive.
Right. The other change that was also pretty positive, and it's a little bit easier to see in red and blue versus in green, and green's kind of different with how people take, but you can see these little triangles on the ground. There's another one here that's kind of blocked. And those were for anybody not from the States or for anybody who watched Hobart Australian Nats in green base, kind of like a maximum occupancy zone is essentially what they were. So in each triangle, that's one person per triangle. And the main goal of that is to prevent people from kind of hiding in between their teammates, and teammates get shot when somebody runs in to try to deny the base. Those were also pretty positive feedback wise as well. I don't think I ever had an issue with that happening.
No, but before we had implemented that,
yeah,
it was an issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
People would hide behind their teams all the time, and then you started seeing people like in red base where she's standing in red. If there was two people under the target card, some people were backing up there and taking the base.
Right.
Very, very risky taking the base from there, but some people had to do it because they can't be hiding between their teammates under the target card, which is what a lot of people were doing.
Yeah.
So the triangles are essentially a one-person zone. Is that what you're?
Yes.
Triangle, yeah. So basically, no more than two players under the target card in blue and green,
two
or
on
blue
the
and
wall,
red.
Two on the wall.
And then green is a little bit different. You can't really see the lines, but there's no more than two people back there as well.
You can kind of see the person's head here. That's one of the more common spots to take the base, is from back here. And occasionally you could get a bunch of people clumped up, plus the ref there too, and it could get very, very congested with that.
We don't have two under the green target card. Like, there should never be more than one person under green target card.
The actual target card, you can see the wire here, and it's kind of above this corner there. Yeah. But you're so blind when you're there to what's happening around you that it doesn't often get used.
Yeah, it's a risk.
Yeah, we have what we call the one person zones, and there's actually quite a lot of effort put into placing them. They're actually back. They're quite an important part of one, safety, but also flow. And it sounds like you guys have had some significant improvement in flow and gameplay by placing a few in there.
Do you allow more than one person under your target cards if, like, say it's a base that would allow for the target card to have like a wall like ours? I don't know what arena would compare.
Just looking at that, we probably have it as a one-person zone with that much space. It's
so you only allow one person under the target.
We don't. It's so arena specific and space specific. But looking at that space that I can see on the camera, we would probably make it a one-person zone. Yeah.
Okay. That I was just curious because I mean I can agree to that. It just would make it very hard to take bases while trying to defend your teammate because you're in the line of sight if you back up at all. You know.
We also have bigger bases with more. Typically, we have bigger bases with more things to hide behind. So I'm looking at these bases, going, it's really the only thing to hide behind. So probably, it probably makes
not
sense
a lot of options. No.
Yeah, make it two people. So that's what works better in that situation. But I think I'm pretty sure. Yeah, in Hobart we had something similar. Hobart's green base was similar to what we're seeing here, and that was a one-person zone. Probably even had more space actually. Than that, we made it one person.
Yeah.
So, Yeah. All right. So
you wanna go
The only other
the other
change we did was
line, yeah.
yeah, we put a middle line in the base. That was a little bit more 50-50 in the feedback with it. Some people had issues
I
with
think it's situational still.
yeah.
Mm.
So that's something we're definitely going to look at. I don't want to take a huge amount of time on that, but there were a lot of issues of like, you might be training in this door with 2 or 3 people, and if you get hit here, because you haven't passed this line, you're supposed to turn and go back out that door. So do you stop and get in the your teammate? What exactly do you do? So there's definitely going to need to be some rethinking how those go, and maybe have like a closer to the door or closer in the base where you can go past to get out of the way or something like that. There's a lot of thought that's going to go into that before nationals to kind of improve the flow issues that happened from that. In a lot of cases, it was great, but there were definitely a lot of cases where it was a problem too.
I'll point out one change that we had made in Fort Wayne specifically for all local Fort Wayne players a few years back. And it was a no base evac rule when the base was being taken. If you were inside the base and you got shot and the base was being taken, you had to stay in the base. Now, if you were right on the baseline towards exiting, you could leave. You're right there and you see that no one's there, you could leave. But if you are in the base at any point, like not near an exit, you were to stay in the base with your phaser up, just signifying that you're not leaving until somebody either comes in to deny the player or they destroy the base, and then you can leave right away. Everyone in local to Fort Wayne liked that rule, and then they did end up liking going back to being able to leave whenever you wanted. But I feel like we didn't enforce it, but it needs to be a change that is enforced in the rule book, and I believe that you should always announce that you're coming out of the base. Just with how tight the base doorways are, you're looking for an accident to happen with someone larger and someone smaller coming in a base. I've even ran into my own teammates at Prenats twice and gave them referee warnings on their gun because they don't either announce that they're coming out of the base. One time we collided right outside the base when we were trying to split at red base right outside. If you look at both doorways, I was on mirror side and he was on back, and for some reason he came to mirror side and I went to back, and but outside the base. We didn't like cross at the same time. We knocked each other, but that's really what I see a lot of, is just running into each other when you don't hear someone coming out of the base because they don't announce it.
So I've got a quick question for you guys. As like some of the top players in your scene, did you find that the line limited your options sometimes? So you'd come into a base, get shot,
Yes.
and then you would like to have the option to go out the other door, but then I was like, bugger, can't.
Yeah, and then I would get in my teammate's way because now I have to like back up, or I have to slow down his entrance because now I can't cross over that way. Otherwise, I'm going to get terminated for it. So it definitely was a nuisance. So I feel like it is situational, where if it makes sense to keep moving, you should. But if it does, that's where you get into the whole gray area of, well, if I'm a game master or referee, whatever, should I terminate this person, or do I use common sense and allow them to keep moving that way? I don't know.
Personally,
it's a big gray area.
I sometimes don't make a decision about which door I'm going to exit until like very late. Like I'm a classic. I love to stand inside the base dead for 3-4 seconds and then read what's going on and then decide, okay, I'm going out that door, and then reactivate like a second or two as soon as I walk out the door. Like that's because you might get to somebody who's just walked around the corner. They see you walk out the door. They think you've still got 6 seconds, but nope, you've only got 1, and then bang, you get them and you're straight back in again. Having the line in there would be like, that would be tough for me. I would be like, sugar, I don't have enough information to make the decision of which door I want to go out yet.
So can I ask, because refs do terminate in the US for stopping in the base and continuing to communicate with your teammates if you're not making an effort to leave the base. I don't know if we enforce that. I just know that you can be terminated for it. It's not in the rule book either that I've ever seen, but I know that is something that we don't necessarily enforce, but we also don't necessarily encourage someone to just stand there and communicate and then, but I have seen people do it, and I don't see the issue with it personally. But I know that in the past that was something. I don't know, Jason. Do you agree with that statement or?
I think it depends on how far it goes. Like if it borders into that like masking territory of yes, I'm communicating, but I'm communicating so you can't tell what's happening with my teammate who's about to come in or on the other side, or am I flat out lying about that someone's coming in this door and they're going to go in the other door, you know, that sort of so
Yeah,
I
I have seen,
I
I
go
have
back and
seen
forth
it.
on that.
I have seen it at. I can remember Worlds 2014. We had some Europeans come over and they played that way. They didn't communicate back in that day. I'm not sure, might have been a rule in Finland back at that time, but they didn't. They were dead inside a base. They weren't allowed to communicate. And it was a clarification thing we had to come up with before the tournament started about what we're going to do. But in Australia, it's all gloves off. It's like if you can communicate whenever you want inside the game. It doesn't matter if you're alive or dead. And
you never stop talking. I always tell the Americans that too. You guys are best at communication, and I encourage it. I feel like you guys have the best communication of any comps I've gone to.
Yeah, it's
so I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's something that is heavily focused on, and you just can't get past a certain tier in the tournament unless your communication is really on point. So it's just a requirement really to compete. And then of course you can stand inside the base for however long, as long as you're out of the way. So the way the bases flow for us is that as soon as you get tagged, get up against the wall. Usually, it's like get out of the way, and then observe and make the best decision possible to stay out of everybody's way. And if you get in somebody's way, you get penalised essentially. Some people like to put their phaser up, whatever. But as long as after a while, people start to get the flow of if you're going to dive this way, if you get shot, you walk to this wall essentially, or get to this wall as quickly as possible, and then make a decision based on what you're seeing essentially about the safest way to exit.
Yeah, because that was one thing that I don't think you mentioned, Jason, is we did implement little stickers along the outside walls, but in blue, for instance,
you can kind of.
I don't always agree with that being the best path to exit, because sometimes people like to come in along that wall, depending on if their teammate is like, say, in that little cubby around the wall, they come in around them, and then you're in the way if you're against that outside wall, you know?
Well, and I the proposal I'm going to make eventually, I think what it'll be is like for blue here, I think this path ends somewhere around here, and that's where your line
you can transition to the
right?
other wall.
Yeah. And so if you come in past that line, I think you should have to keep going to one of these two spots along the wall, like you were saying, stop, assess, pick a way to go, and then same idea, okay, go here, and then check before you get in someone's way. And you can do a similar thing in red. You can do a similar thing in green. I think ultimately that's going to end up being what the solution is, if I had to guess, because that gives more flexibility and less collisions. I didn't have any issues with the line, but I was also a bad teammate and very rarely went in bases with my team members. So I can't talk about that. So
was there any other changes that we needed to go over? Or?
I think that was the majority of them. If there was and we're forgetting, can they be that important? So
all right. Well, that sounds like a perfect segue. Let's start talking about people.
Sure.
Let's start talking about players. Yes. So the way we're going to do this, guys, is we're going to kind of talk about the different tiers. So we're going to maybe talk about the finalists, and then by tiers we mean groups of teams that were around the same level in the tournament, and we're going to talk about some of the standout players within those tiers. So I don't know the teams and the players, so I'm going to really hand over to you guys. Should we start? Let's start at the bottom tier, talking about which teams were in there and some of the standout players, in particular attackers, defenders, captains, and the like.
Sure. I will do some creative reordering here to go with.
You want me to give you the order?
I think I've got it. So I think up here was finals, and then 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
Frequency, death to all, coast to coast, so Valhalla. That was the order from bottom to top.
From
moving into finals technically, but coast to coast.
Yes.
You guys were in finals. So
Yeah.
I misspoke in the fact that Trash Pandas was above you. That's all. So
no. I just had them in like general, like.
I got you.
I just had here's the final results kind of to look off of that because we're already a bit in. So talking about prelims, cascades, finals, probably.
Well, if we want to just go over Redacted shortly,
sure.
I can start with them. It's all new players except for Shaggy and CK being alts. They're both some of like the Fort Wayne veterans. They're much older now, so they're just filling in and they're just happy to play, I think. So, but Irate, Supar, Head, Iron Jackal, and Snips, they're all newer. I believe Irate is actually handing the hat off to either Supar or Head to captain the team, and he's actually being picked up by BSO because he played with them. He played with us for Prenats, and he took Cuddle's spot because Cuddles will not be able to make it to nationals. So Cuddles actually ended up coming off the team night 2, and Irate replaced him. They really enjoyed playing with Irate and asked if he would play with them for nationals. So the Redacted team is going to be a completely different roster for nationals.
Mm-hmm.
However, they're all newer players of just under a year now. They've been playing for about a year, but competing for less than that. But Irate has a lot of potential. I would say he's definitely your star player on that team. Head has a lot of potential as an individual player. As a teammate, I haven't played with him enough, but he is a very good, solid player. Snips, also a lot of potential. He's got great teamwork, and he'll do what you tell him to.
You want to give us very quickly what roles these guys play?
I would say Irate is definitely, and Irate and Head are definitely offensive players.
Yeah.
Same with Supar, and Iron Jackal and Snips, I would say are more defensive players or maybe point scorers in the arena. They just kind of are opportunists, I would say. And then Supar kind of falls somewhere in between that. He hasn't really figured out what works best for him yet. Supar and Head don't play as often. Supar, Head, and Iron Jackal don't play as often as Snips and Irate. But Head just has like a knack for the game. He placed, I think, 3rd in one of our league solos and one comp, and that showed me right there that he has the potential. But he's the type that doesn't like to lose. So when people start to do better than him, he doesn't like to, admit it or play, I would say. But he definitely has the potential there. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say about them. Shaggy, also a great opportunist. He's more of a support player. And CK, he was probably one of the best players in Fort Wayne of all time at one point. But he's just gotten older, and he still loves to come out and play and support any team that'll have him. So he's always he always pulls off some crazy stuff in the arena. Like you'll see, and then like he's just one of those guys that is like a wild card. He, like one game he might not do so hot, but the next game he puts up 15K or something,
So have you taken any of these under your wing, Pheonix? You've got these some of your local players?
I would say the ones that we play with, and we all get together outside of zone as well and build a camaraderie, is Irate and Snips.
Those are the two that come out the most.
Yeah.
Cool.
But they also
definitely
travel.
Look forward to them.
Some of them have gone to like Toledo. We have a local zone with Helios Pro about an hour and a half away from here, and they travel to Toledo every so often. Some Nugget is the captain of Death to All. I believe he now owns the Toledo QZAR site. So they used to have QZAR at the QZAR site, but now it's Zone Equipment. But they kept the name QZAR, and so just it's funny. It has Zone Equipment in a QZAR place, but it works for him. But Nugget, he's a good player. Onyx and Slapbox, I don't believe came.
They did not go to Prenats.
Prenats, but they both have potential. They're
sure.
all these players are from Toledo, so it's great to see a team from another local spot coming out to our nationals in Fort Wayne. And Nugget and Too Easy are by far probably the best two on the team. Nugget's little brother also came out and played, and then a kid named Jesse. Or was that Jay Lee?
JC is Jay Lee.
Okay.
Okay. His little brother and Jay Lee have a lot to learn, but they definitely like the game and they have the potential. They just have a lot to learn. I think it's just their age. You learn a lot up here. The older you get, the smarter choices you make in the game. So even though you are good, doesn't mean you're helping your team or doing what you should be doing in the game. And I think they just have to get the knack on what they should be doing in the games. But Nugget being a captain, I think he's a little bit too easy on his team. He doesn't like enforce as much as he should. And too easy, he, in my opinion, is probably their best player. He has a lot of potential.
For sure.
He'd probably their MVP if I were to choose anyone on that team. And then I'll let you guys take over after frequency. I'll just do frequency real quick, and then if somebody else wants to, fill in for the rest. Frequency has got a lot of players that play in Armageddon. Havoc, a lot of you guys might know Havoc. I know you've done a podcast with Havoc. He's traveled all over the world for laser tag too. I don't know about for zone tournaments, but he likes to go a lot of places, and he's involved in a lot of laser tag things as well. He's a really good player to have on the team for them, and just with the experience that he has. Whether this team, it was hard for me to watch at Prenats this team because they have the potential and they're all such good players. Like Blue Flame, I hadn't played against her since like 2018, 2019 Armageddon, sometime at that point. But she showed up in Fort Wayne and she played really good. She plays with some of my teammates out in Cali, Slick and Punisher and Trigga and Snoopy out there. So obviously she's playing with some of our veteran best players in the US, and she did really well. Cope, I spoke with him kind of privately a little bit, and I won't say a lot, but like he has so much potential. I told him he's a great player. He just gets in his head sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that he would benefit a lot from just taking like a back seat and just like listening to what's happening and just kind of going with what everyone else is doing instead of trying to be that decision maker in the game. I think he would benefit from maybe just slowing it down, taking it back a little bit, and just doing what everyone else is doing instead of trying to do his own thing. It's not like he's like one of those players that just you lose the game. I think he's trying to make the right choice, but it's not the choice that the rest of the team is doing at times.
But he's really funny though. So he should keep talking.
He should, yeah.
In game.
Got some good comebacks. Oh man,
I might be jumping ahead, but the Armageddon guys, are they going to be putting a team together for the Nats?
This was partly that team. I would say maybe some more Armageddon players might come out. I would love to see some more Armageddon players come out to a zone tournament, and I know that we're trying to get some players go to their draft tournament that's coming up, I believe, a couple weeks prior to our national event. So I know some more players, even like one of the German players is coming to Armageddon US, and then he's staying for US Nationals. So Jonas is going to be here from and he's going to be playing with Trash Pandas. So you don't see him on the list, but
he's playing with BSO.
BSO.
Oh, he's with BSO?
Yes. Hold on.
Oh, my bad.
You're right.
I have the Nats rosters
there you go.
right below.
There we go.
Came prepared.
So, but I'll move on to Tywin. He's like the Beyblade of the team. He's like a spin top spin there, man. And you can't ever hit him, but he's got so much potential. He's another one that I feel like if he just got out of his own head, and he always likes to put himself down like outside of the game. So he'll be like, "No, I'm not that good." I'm like, "Yeah, BS."
He is good.
Everyone knows it, but I feel like maybe he just needs to hype himself up. He needs to hype himself up a little bit more and be a little bit more confident, and then he would do a lot better in the game. I think just have that confidence, and I don't know why he does it. I don't know why he puts himself down, but I try and put him up there because he's definitely got the potential and he's really good. Cutlass, he's their captain. He's formerly known as Sugar Daddy, and I played with both Tywin and Sugar Daddy. We won Nats as Monstro, and actually Tywin came up with the name Monstro for the team originally, like years and years ago. Like he is the creator of Monstro, as far as I'm aware, and he kind of gave me rights to the name. He said he loves seeing that, you know, we're carrying on like the mantle of the name. So I respect both of them very highly. I appreciate them letting us use that name because it means a lot to continue traveling with the same name from US. So kind of other teams know that Monstro is going to be here. Even if we don't do so well at some comps, it's nice to see that, you know, a returning team from the US out of the country is coming to play with us, you know, and that's what I enjoy the most. But Cullis, he's another one, got great potential, and he's gotten better as a leader. I saw it in one game. I came out, they didn't win the game, but I told him, I was like, whatever you guys did that game, it worked. It was perfect. Do that more often. And Jake's like, thank you. You know, like he said that everyone did their jobs and it worked great. And I think they were dialing things in towards the end of night 2, but there was still a lot of like what I said in the beginning, it was hard to see these guys work together, to watch them, because their teamwork it didn't mesh well. But I feel like if they fine tune it and they can make some tweaks or some changes to their game style, I think that they have a shot. It's just they found what worked for them a little too late in the comp, and that's why they didn't place so high, or why they placed towards the bottom at the end of the Prenats.
I was able to talk with them and talk to Tywin a little bit here and there. And I think, you know, like I know Blue Flame comes from a Laser Quest background. Some of the other guys have that Armageddon background. I think what contributed to that slower start was everybody was seeing the game differently, but not there wasn't nobody was endeavoring to get on the same page. And just kind of went with assumptions for a while. But they did definly start to.
You're missing one player too. I just remembered.
Yes.
What's his name? I can't remember his alias. I have he's the one who created our map too, our newest map. So shout out to him. Whatever your name is right now, I'm like drawing a blank in my brain. I can't think. I'm looking.
I don't. I was trying to pull the rosters off of Skills.
Alex. Yep. Alex is his name. I just found it as you said it. So Skills.
Is it with an S or a Z at the end? Of course.
And he was one that it was good to see. He asked me at the end of the comp, or he asked me before the comp began, like, hey, where do you see me as a player? Like, where do I rank up or match up against like the rest of the comp here as far as like tier? And I would say, you know, we kind of rank our players tier 1. There's a top, you know, the top tier 1 players, mid tier 1, bottom tier 1. And then you go to top tier 2, you know, mid tier 2, bottom tier 2. And then tier 3 is just tier 3. You know, if you're there, you just haven't gotten into the comp yet. Learning still. And I said by the end of the tournament, he was like mid to top tier 2 because his communication was better. He knew where to position himself. He had a lot more that he was contributing at the end of the comp that I saw from the beginning or from the last time he had been here for like just a get together. So that was good to see. But moving on to Trash Pandas.
Yeah, he's taking over Trash Pandas.
Who you want out of the next 4, Grant? I'll do 2, you do 2, or we can kind of combo it. Up to you.
I mean, we can combo it. Trash Pandas Renegade, I played with him in 2019 and for my other times here and there, and at the same time, and we've been growing together the last 5 years, and both of us kind of taking on the captain role around at the same time, and yeah, great player. Bob and Nightmare have been playing for quite some time. Yeah.
The longest.
Definitely great players to look out for. Acid and Legs also good. Legs has a different handhold than any other player I've ever seen.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
Like a raptor.
Yeah, it's like definitely different. But don't underestimate
it. Like upside down.
Really
I don't know. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the traditional rifleman there for a second.
No. Imagine that. Walking around like that. I'll just add a couple things to that, Grant. As far as Renegade goes, he's learned so much over the years, and he's finally, earned his right to be on the Team Monstro, and he's earned his right to be, considered one of the better players in Fort Wayne now. And now that he's captaining a team, we'll see how well he does at Nats. The only thing he could work on is like rewatching some of the VODs. There was times where he got a little excited. He shot 2 players. He got the base. He was like, whoa, like celebrating. And then someone came in his side, a shot at them. He took another shot at them. He got shot, and Bob was in the base, and he just walked out. And then Bob got shot. And then Bob was like, Renegade, say something. And I was like, what happened? Like, he did so good.
Yeah,
he stopped talking. So you just got to remember to communicate. Celebrate, but communicate. And
he's definitely been working on that because he was pretty quiet in the beginning, and he's definitely gotten a lot more outspoken.
Yeah.
To me, this team is like, if you wanted the poster of who are the most underrated players in the United States, it's pretty much this team. Like, Renegade is a phenomenal left-handed defender. Legs is the same thing except right-handed and or whatever-handed, whatever you want to call that handhold. I think Bob has been one of the most underrated players in the U.S. for easily a decade, if not more.
He's definitely the best defensive player on the team. Like in our bases especially, it's really hard to crack him out of the bases.
Yeah. He is on that list of people for me that if I see him in the base, okay, I've got to think about what's happening now. Acid, same thing. She's a fantastic support player. She can communicate. She's not going to ever try to do too much. And I know they had Psy sub in because I don't think Gimpy came down, and Cambo was beating Final Fantasy VII that just came out. So he had his priorities straight, not coming to a laser tag tournament. I 100% support him in this. But those two additions of theirs for nationals are going to make them a very, very good team.
He could have came and said hi.
No, he couldn't. You got to grind. No, I support him on this. Got to grind. 100% support that.
So you should probably talk about Valhalla then, Jason.
Sure. So Valhalla, so they had the why is Paige listed as the captain in the file? So they did not have Jammer Tanner, for those familiar from RSD, and I'm pretty sure he's in the chat throwing up emotes. They didn't have him. I think he's going to be a big part of their team for. Huh?
It sounded like a washing machine.
It started raining again here. Hang on, I'm gonna mute. Oh, okay. Yeah, I live in the second wettest place in Australia, so it rains all the time.
It was like it sounded like a washing machine. I was like, what is going on?
So I think Tanner's going to be a big part of what they do for nationals.
Can I say something?
Yeah, you're good.
I feel that if Tanner was there for Prenats, you guys would have won Prenats.
Probably.
I also feel that if Blake wasn't on Coast to Coast, BSO would have won Prenats.
Probably, yeah. So they Grant Pheonix is coming into his own as a captain, putting people in the right place. Key, Dr. Phil, and Yuzu, they're all brothers, I want to say.
Dr. Phil and Key are brothers, and Yuzu is her cousin.
Okay. They're kind of in that 5-ish years ago start. Same thing. Pheonix is in.
No. They've been here a long time.
Have they?
They just haven't competed as long.
Okay.
They haven't traveled as many competitions, but they've been in a lot of leagues since all the way back to 2016.
Okay, I haven't been out there since then, so that makes sense. But even just the growth I've seen since COVID has been incredibly impressive. Zach Hellfire is a phenomenal base defender. There's a huge amount of talent on this team, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but once they lose a few more tournaments, they're going to start winning a whole bunch of them. They're in that stage of too much talent, not enough experience to see what's happening in real time or to trust their instincts in real time as well. And I think if they did a little bit more of that, they would have a lot more golds in their trophy cabinet. Huge amount of talent on this team. Yeah, that's that. What else do you have to add on top of that, Luke? Or Grant, if you want to talk about yourself.
Well, I can add on for like some of the guys. Like Yuzu is the biggest opportunist I've ever seen. He just he just finds opportunities that other people don't. Dr. Phil is one of the hardest people to hit in the arena because of his dodges, and he's just a little bit larger, but he moves like someone that's skinny. So like he's really hard to hit when you want to, you know. And Zach, he's handicapped. I mean, he's got hearing aids, and he still is like one of the best defenders that we have in Fort Wayne. If he's in a base, he can. If people are attacking that base and not starving that base, he can easily pull 10K with no bases because he just gets so many points on defense. People just feed him, you know. And then Grant, I mean, you've come a long way with just how much you've learned over all the comps that we've been to, playing together out of country. And I know you still don't want to play with me because you want to beat me, but you know, I really want to see you put some numbers up there and put the guys in the right spots in the arena because I know you have the potential to do so. And just what's everyone saying? Like you need to dial it in. I think. Lock it in. You need to lock it in.
Lock it in.
You need to lock it in with these guys because if any of them fall out of line or anyone starts arguing with each other, I think that's your biggest problem is when your team starts arguing with each other and then nobody gets on, you know, top of that person or whoever it is that kind of is being the nag. And I think that's what really ultimately at the end of the day is usually your team's downfall is it's one or two people that aren't with the program. You know, they're just kind of
mental.
Yeah, they lose it mentally, and then the whole team loses mentally. And I think if you guys can lock it in and you can really dial it in to the point where everyone's on the same page, even if you do lose a game, it doesn't matter what happened in that game because you can't control what happened in the last game. You can only control what happens moving forward, you know? And that's what you just got to tell these guys, you know?
Sorry,
I'm
laughing at the chat.
Okay.
No,
I'm not even looking at the chat. Where is this chat?
On Twitch.
Let's move on to BSO and Coast to Coast, guys. Let's move on to a wrap up of those guys.
Yep.
We're really going a little bit over today, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Get to talk
I'm sorry.
so let's make the most of it.
I'll go fast on this one. Luke is Luke, needs no introduction or explanation. BSO as a team, you'll be okay. Striker and Sexy and Juggalo's been kind of an institution in Fort Wayne for a while. They've got their own style. It's incredibly annoying to play against and effective. I think Luke actually slotted in well and kind of complimented them.
It did.
Same thing with Cuddles, and then when Cuddles jumped off to another team and Irate came in, it worked
even better, I'd say.
Yeah.
Cuddles is great though. Like
Cuddles is a very good player.
Yeah.
Like I missed playing with him after he left, but I was happy to have Irate.
Yeah. You know, they probably should have won the event. We had, you know, between teams moving around and our fifth got sick partway through, so we picked up another player. You know, there was a lot of all that happening. You know, if things have probably stayed the same, you could make a good argument that they should have won. You know, Sexy and Striker are just very, very smart, very cohesive. Juggalo's always in a super obnoxious spot, shooting you in the back. It's insane.
I'm hoping that they will learn from the European style that I taught them on kind of not pushing everyone out of the base or keeping everyone back, you know, like that they'll keep playing that style because it really worked well for them. They won't have me for nationals, but they have Irate now. And I think that that'll be a good fit for them they normally are offensive players.
Plus Jonas too. I think that'll
kind of my spot. I feel like to help with Irate on offense. Rob's going to get points everywhere around the arena. He knows it like the back of his hand. You know, he's going to know where to be. He always comes out with the most points, it seems like. And then Striker and Sexy just need to position themselves well in the middle to defensive area to really come out on top each game.
Yep.
Phoenix, you probably do coast to coast.
Yeah. Coast to coast. That was Scooby's first time. I mean, I played with Scooby against him in Bailey's and in Philly, and he knows where to go. He finds out he was new to this arena, and he knew where to go to find where to get the points at, and he definitely took advantage of that. Odin and Banshee are both from Fort Wayne. Odin, I mean, yeah, he's newer. He started about a year after I did, and I've seen him grow faster than probably any other new people that I've seen come through. And he definitely has a passion for the game and is always wanting to be out and playing. And he's traveling with us to, yeah, he's traveling with us to Germany and World. So, I mean, definitely excited to be playing with him more this year and against him. Invalid, played with him in Sweden, and that was my first time in ever playing with him. Our chemistry, it was actually really good. So I'm excited to see more. Every time I'm excited to see what Invalid does. Left-handed people are a nuisance.
Or a new breed.
Scourges on the laser tag scene.
They are.
Arkangel,
he just.
I want one on my team.
Yeah.
Two preferences.
Yeah. Arkangel, he's super smart, knows exactly what to do, makes great calls, knows where to put his team. And I mean, playing with the same people over and over definitely helps that. I'm trying to take exactly what he's doing, keeping the same team. It's definitely an advantage having the chemistry built up. Ballistic and Monsta, Lil D formerly, played with them I think once maybe or twice. Definitely excited to see Monsta back out at Fort Wayne, and this will be the first time I see Ballistic here, but I'm excited to see what they bring to the table after what you guys brought this time.
I would say Lil D is arguably your best player.
I would agree.
Yeah, and he wasn't there.
That's not a hot take.
Yeah.
But for those that are watching, like in the newer players in Fort Wayne that don't know those guys, like they have something to look forward to, like even a harder challenge, and Ballistic is always one of your best shot callers in the game. Like if outside of bases, whatever, he's gonna communicate. One of your best communicators.
Yes. For anyone who was there, imagine what Invalid did, but louder and more annoying. And wait till we have two of them. It'll be great. I guess the only thing I'll say is shout out to Key, shout out to Isaac for the best compliment I've ever gotten, calling me Rap God. If you were in that Discord call at the time, you know what he's talking about. He's referring to one of the Cascades games when Blake came in. So thank you, Isaac. I appreciate that. So let's go ahead and scroll down to Nationals rosters real quick. And Bootza, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think we need to go into a super deep preview of this, but just some general thoughts real fast.
How did you want to wrap up?
I would love to have your opinion on a lot of this too, considering you are right there, and I'm very curious to see what you think coming into it.
Well, we committed not knowing that all these amazing teams were going to be coming. We just came because we wanted to come and support, and we all wanted to play together. So Jay Hong and Moomin came to Zeltac in Hobart last year, and we had a conversation at one of the social events, and we're like, we need to plan a team together. And so we made it happen. We were fortunate enough to be able to get a team together, and then suddenly we hear that the old legends are coming out of the woodwork, and we're like, oh, this is going to be fun. I mean, I've been playing them since 2009 was the first time I played them in a big international tournament, which was in Finland. The World's in Finland. Played them in 2011 as well, 2014. Still haven't beaten them yet, unfortunately, but now's our chance. So it'd be great to like go to my grave knowing that we at least took one off the legends, you know. So that will be an important milestone for us.
That'll
if
be
we can get there.
That would be amazing if you do, because honestly, that would be amazing if you do.
Yeah.
I hope you guys can really compete. Like, I want to see you guys in finals.
Well, those guys they've been out of action for a while. They've started practicing again, is what I understand. And but we have no idea what form they're in, how sharp they're looking, what condition they're in at all. So don't know what to expect from them. But they all have.
Honestly, I don't know either.
Yeah. Okay.
Have
you guys seen anything from them?
They won their little comp that they did, like an Elim or Sweet comp, I think, or like
I think it was like a 4v4 base run or base game or whatever it's
and
called.
they won that. But I mean, that was to be expected, just based on the way that they play together and their chemistry and just how much experience they have. But they didn't. I won't say that they didn't play anyone good, because that's not true. They played like against Nuala, but that's the only person out there that I know in that part of Cali is really good player. Nuala, I hope to see you at Nats. Like, whatever team you come with, you're amazing.
For
You
sure.
should be here. So
I think Blue Flame was actually at that tournament too.
Blue Flame was at the tournament.
I think they ended up taking a game somewhere over that off of them.
Yeah.
But
they do have arguably two of the best players in Fort Wayne on the team, being me and Odin, to help kind of on the offensive and defensive if need be. So that'll be fun to play.
That's the scary part of it, is that they're going to, even if they're not quite back to their 2014 form, they're going to have you guys there to basically, piggyback them through. So it's a scary team, that one, and I expect that one.
And Odin's really excited
at the sharp end. Yeah, I bet.
Well, and even if they're 60% of where they're at, like, think of where they were at. 60% is still amazing, and I would guess by the time Nats rolls around, it's going to be like riding a bike. I would be incredibly surprised if you all are in finals, if not winning the thing.
So Zach's asked if Holmes will be doing a day in the life vlog at the US Nationals. We definitely will be doing a bucket ton of content. So we'll be doing lots of that stuff, because why not? We're going to be there. It's going to be such a once in a lifetime experience. So we'll be taking full advantage of it.
That's exciting.
And I'm just seeing if you guys got the team we were talking about before. I'm not sure whether I should mention it or not. There's another international team that is at 50-50. I'm not sure if we can mention it.
I'll loosely mention it. So there's a potential mix coming over of New Zealand and Finnish players, but there was some recent changes to travel routes and stuff like that, kind of internationally, that might throw a wrench in that, along with life circumstances. So we're hoping to get some at least one more international team over. If anybody from over there is watching, definitely reach out to Invalid if you have questions about stuff. But was very, very much hoping they would come. There's a few players from both countries I really would like to play against one way or another. But no full details on that.
Let's just say it would be a finals contending team.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. An absolute ripper. When I found out they could potentially be coming, I was like, oh my God, it's Christmas in July. It's an absolute ripper. So in terms of the other teams, like I'm just going, I haven't played you guys. So I played Coast to Coast back in 2011. Not sure how much that roster is still playing now, but you guys were good back then. You guys made the final that year, didn't you?
We did. We went from where I think there was 13 teams that finals. And shout out to Beefy if he's watching from Australia. I think it was him. It was either him or Sinclair who put out a blog halfway through the tournament and kind of listed the teams. And then at the very end, it was the rest. And it was like, yeah, we don't need to talk about those, because we were in dead last at that point in the tournament. And then went from the second game of, it wasn't System D, it was System S, and played, I want to say it was 23 out of 24 games to get to finals. It was not fun.
I just remember you guys absolutely
enjoy that at all.
You guys found this thing in red that worked, and just absolutely just started drilling everybody with it. And nobody could get you guys out of red, and you guys managed to be able to get into red very easily as well. So I remember, and then you just went, took everybody out, got to the final. We're like, left holding our bags. Right.
Yep. Yeah. It was. And then Baltimore, they had the bye to finals and did a practice game, and part of that was like, okay, let's let them rest for a second. And then when we went to get up, we were like, oh no, we shouldn't have stopped moving. That was a bad call. Yeah. So yeah, speaking of Baltimore, they are not on this list. But as far as it's looking like right now, the whole Identity Crisis crew is planning to be out for this tournament as well.
Do we want to start like just maybe kind of loosely, just kind of categorizing like top 5, bottom 5 or something like that we see, like top 5 contenders or something? Is that what we should do, Bootza?
So we do need to wrap up pretty shortly because we've been going for almost 2 hours now. So what I'd say is maybe give us an insight into how many extra teams you think might be added to this list and who they might be, and then maybe who are the teams competing for finals.
Yeah, so definitely Baltimore, definitely potential on the one international team. And then I would say maybe there's technically one more that's not here. That would be the boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they not on here?
I don't see them.
So they're coming, but their roster has changed, so they're coming as well. So that is like another team.
Yeah.
So there's 2 that are like almost guaranteed that are coming for sure. 2 more, so that's 2, 4. So that's 12 teams already.
If the international came, that would make it 13. And I've heard potentially there could maybe be a Philly team, and then
would we have any potential of a Bailey's team coming out?
Probably not a Bailey's, but Fresh was talking to the old Virginia Beach and ISP crew about coming out, and I know there's a lot of interest there, especially so they don't have to do bicep curls to lift the Helios Pro lasers.
So I always said from the start, I'm expecting 12, at minimum 12, but more than 15. That's what I've been expecting the whole time.
I think that's a realistic range somewhere in there is what we end up with.
Yeah.
Such a good number. That's my ideal comp size number. I think 12 to 15 is great. So, and who do you guys? And I did notice that we do have the conglomerate team, the frequency team, which is the Armageddon crew. Mm-hmm. So that's good to have those guys. And who are your early picks for sort of Golden Game and Grand Final teams?
Who wants to lead off with that?
Pheonix, what's yours? You tell us. You're a local who knows all the players. So,
I mean, playing with Moomin in Philly last year, and then playing against his team in Sweden, and him as a captain, I'm excited to see what you guys bring to the table. So you guys are definitely up there with in my finals bracket. Another one for finals. If I'm being unbiased, I will say I'd probably see Legends up there, and if the Finland-New Zealand team does come, I'd see them up there as well.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know Legends, the team name is Game Time this time around. They didn't want to go by Legends this time. Okay, you can just put Legends there, I guess. Speaking for them.
The team formerly known as Legends. There we go.
But if I'm being biased, I'm going to put our team up there.
Who didn't you? Why didn't you put yourself up there? Who did you put above you?
Finland, New Zealand.
Oh, you did? If they come?
Yeah. Yes.
It'll be nice to see how well teams from other countries can adapt to the not only the play style of the way like Americans play, because they might outplay us the way that you guys play. Mm-hmm. Also, to just see the adaptability of the arena, how quickly they can learn the arena during the side events like solos and triples, and learning what spots are the best spots to stand, and the base call outs, and just to see how well you guys can really capitalize on all that as well will determine on if we'll actually see you guys in finals. And I hope that, at least, one of the the outside teams make it to finals. It's always nice to see a traveling team from another country to be in the finals in the U.S. or vice versa, like another team going from another country to yours. It would be so cool to see, one of our teams make it there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the outside international teams play in our arena. We've been playing in the arena for the last 5 years, and we play somewhat, we know all the spots, so I'm excited to see what they find that we might not find, or vice versa.
Yeah. Do you want to go next, Jason, or you want me to?
Sure, I can. So I'll skip on officially ranking the New Zealand Finland team. They would be part of my likely finals crew. I definitely think Bootza, I think you guys, just with the way the people from different countries kind of fit together naturally within a coherent team idea of how you would want to play the arena, and then what you and Holmes and Runt can do in that arena. I am not looking forward to dealing with that at all. I would love to downplay my team, but I think we're probably getting our two best players back for this tournament.
And we got a nasty pickup.
And we won the last two, and Nocturne is also on there.
That's your nasty pickup.
He is. Yes. For Nocturne's a Philadelphia player, very vocal in-game leader. We don't have the problem on my team of, okay, you shut up now, and not those words in a less PG-13 friendly version. But I feel like I have learned a lot. I've started to look at the game a little bit differently than your traditional attack defense, and how I go about that. So I'm hopeful for Nats. I think we probably end up in finals and have a good shot for it. The other three teams I would put in that conversation: Legends, obvious reasons, adding Luke and Tyler to an already well-decorated roster. You have to be silly not to pick them. I think Valhalla, Grant, I think you guys, I think learning a lot from these last couple of tournaments, if you guys make a handful of changes, and I know we talked about some of them, so I'm confident that you will, I think you guys have a very good chance to win it as well. And then, I mean, how can you count out Baltimore and Identity Crisis? They show up and it's the same thing, and you know what's going to happen, and there's no stopping it. It's just, it is what it is.
What I was looking for was, how did they do at Philly last year?
Second.
Yeah, okay. They got second.
I was looking for the thing, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So did you have any more to say, or did you want me to?
No, that was the quick version. So
yeah, and I think it's pretty much a consensus there. If I were to pick my top three teams with no bias, like right off the bat, I would say Game Time, Legends. I would put in the No Idea team from Australia, Sweden, and I'd put in Coast to Coast. Those are my top three picks without even thinking like in depth about anything. But the next two that are possible contenders are Valhalla and Identity Crisis, Baltimore. That's their.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait a second, am I saying that wrong? No. So Valhalla and Identity Crisis are the next two contenders, in my opinion, that have a chance to make it to finals. And it'll really, I think, like right now, the top two teams are Coast to Coast and Game Time, just with the experience on the playing field. And then I would say, as long as No Idea can lock it in and learn the arena well and communicate well together, you guys are all great players. Like, in my opinion, some of you are better than a lot of the ones on both Identity Crisis and Valhalla, So, like, the potential is there for you guys to be my third pick right up. But thinking a little deeper, you're probably right there with Valhalla and Identity Crisis as to who the third team would be to get into finals. But I would say Game Time and Coast to Coast are most likely going to be in. But there's always room for an upset. I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah. Alrighty, gents. Well, that's an excellent wrap. And if you guys are keen for it, I think we most definitely need to do a predictions panel prior to the tournament, maybe a month out or something like that, so we can go into more depth on all the teams once we've got the final rosters and start talking about a bit more about the players on those teams. But it's been absolutely wonderful hanging with you guys today. Arkangel, Skywalker, and Pheonix, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for everybody in the chat for being active and joining us for our longest pod so far. We really know how to gas bag when we get together.
I can yap a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Right. Well, hopefully it was entertaining for everybody out there. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you again in a fortnight. Take care.
Yes, sir.